another nail in my coffin.
Hey everybody, it's me, friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete, and this is my series Nails in a Coffin, where we learn that with great kills there must also come great nails. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. We are halfway through covering Adam Green's Hatchet franchise. Here's a look at the average nails in a coffin for the movies I've covered so far. The original Hatchet came in with an average of 1.82 nails in a coffin, and Hatchet 2 slightly lower with 1.7 nails in a coffin. Hatchet 3 has a very, very high body count, and we have a lot of nailing to do, and I guess someone's got to do it. Real quick, I want to ask if you could please consider hitting that subscribe button, notification bell. It really helped me continue to grow this channel. As of recording this, I'm at 400 subs. Hopefully by the time you watch this, I have a few more. I'd love to get to 500 subs by end of the year, and I appreciate any help you can get by sharing this video around. Let people know it's just a fun horror channel. I'd really like that. Thanks a lot. I also have a new Nails in Coffin episode out every Friday and every Wednesday. I alternate between my debate series with my friend Carlin and my Let's Nail This series, which is a series that you, the viewer, can actually be part of. I'll put some cards up here for you to check out. And before I get on to Hatchet 3, I forgot to mention in last week's episode that the actor R.H. Milahoff, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, who played Trent in Hatchet 2, actually played Leatherface in Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So one thing very common with this franchise is there are tons and tons of horror cameos. It's really awesome. So there is a huge body count in this film, and I guess it's time to start nailing some victims. Just like its predecessor, Hatchet 3 picks up right after Hatchet 2 left off. Mary Beth just shot Victor Crowley in the face after pulverizing his head with the hatchet. So she's down on the ground thinking that he's dead for sure, but she gets up and she starts to walk away, not seeing Victor Crowley get up. She's walking, she hears something, and she sees his big-ass chainsaw that Crowley used to kill Vernon and John. So she gets to start it after she hears this noise. Right as the monster shows up, that chainsaw starts. So he grabs her and picks her up, and she gets him off by ramming her fist into what's left of his face. He drops her, falls on top of the chainsaw, and it cuts him in half vertically. We next see Mary Beth enter the local police station with the shotgun in one hand and Victor Crowley's head meat in the other. Somehow she walked all the way from the swamp to the police station in broad daylight with a gun and a bloody meat bag in her hands, and no one ever called the cops or said anything. So she gets into the police station. Everyone quickly gets her down on the ground and handcuff her. The town sheriff, hey, it's Billy, everybody. She tells him that she killed them and that they're all dead in Honey Island Swamp. Yeah, Mary Beth really doesn't help her cause with her great communication skills here. She's quickly taken into custody and placed into a cell. When the sheriff is trying to find out what actually happened from Mary Beth, of course he's not going to believe her, but during the conversation, one of his deputies who actually went to go investigate the swamp, he does tell him, hey, it's a bloodbath down here and they need all the help they can get, fire, paramedics, state, and additional support. It's now nighttime and the swamp is covered by medical examiners and paramedics trying to piece together what the heck happened. They even collect the remains of Victor Crowley and put him in a body bag. They stow his remains inside this small medical examiner's craft on the swamp. Randy is one of the coroners, and he's in the mobile lab going over some evidence. The body bag behind him, it kind of starts to move. He can't see it. Looks like Victor Crowley's Deadpool healing factor has now kicked in. This is all happening behind Randy, and he gets up to grab a pair of goggles. He sits back down. He's looking over stuff. He hears a defibrillator charge up. He turns, dead is Victor. Victor puts the paddles on his head and shocks him, and he shocks him until Randy's head is no more. Randy, he was played by excellent character actor Sean Wayland. He's our first kill of many, and I'm giving him 2 nails in the coffin. There's nothing I saw that Randy did that was really stupid. He was just doing his job. There's no way he would know that the body that was cut in half vertically would reform itself and wake up and try and kill him. He heard a sound and turned around, and he was killed before he could even contemplate what the hell was happening to him. So, you know, when you die in a movie and it was a surprise kill, you really had no chance of doing anything, you're going to get a respectful 2 nails in the coffin. Deputy Hamilton is Victor Crowley's next victim, and he's actually played by Jason Trost, who wrote, directed, and starred in an excellent superhero movie, All Superheroes Must Die. Check that one out. He's walking back towards the mobile lab, and he kind of hears the splat of Randy's head. He draws his weapon right as Victor Crowley bursts out of the lab. That deputy tells him to stop. Of course, Victor Crowley's not going to listen too well. Deputy Hampton unloads his pistol into Victor Crowley. He goes down for a second, but quickly pops back up. He's charging at the deputy. He falls down on his butt because movie, and he's kind of crawling backwards until his back hits a tree. And he barely gets any more words out before Victor Crowley uses his hatchet and splits the deputy's head in half. Deputy Hamilton, he earned himself 1.5 nails in the coffin. I like how he opened fire right away. He emptied his pistol into the beast, but he got right back up. And he was backing up and fell down, which happens in horror movies. He was scrambling to call for help. I think he should have tried to get to his feet and run instead of crawling backwards. He wasn't injured. He just kept crawling. I think he could at least try to get to his feet and at least, run to go get some distance before you can actually call for help. And yeah, I think that really hurt him here. He may have had a better chance of surviving at least a little while longer. So the best I can really do is give him 1.5 nails in a coffin. Due to the distress call that Deputy Houndsman made, it actually made it out. A large faction of backup arrives at the swamp. Before they arrived, 4 firemen and paramedics were killed, but they were killed off screen, so I can't give them a nail rating. So this large group of SWAT and police found the mutilated bodies of these men. 2 officers are standing in front of Victor Crowley's shack, and everyone else is kind of facing the shack with their weapons drawn, kind of searching around. Victor Crowley, he kind of appears out of the darkness, spears one of these officers through the back, pulls him into the shack. Deputy Elbert, she tries to run, but she's actually hooked by Victor Crowley. He's dragging her in. Meanwhile, all the officers are firing into the shack. Well, the Sheriff Fowler, he actually tries to help the deputy, but it's of news. He pulls her into the shack, and both of these 2 officers are now dead. I'm going to grade these 2 together, and I'm going to give both of them 1 nail in a coffin. Why the hell are these 2 standing in everybody else's line of fire with their backs to an opening to the shack where Victor Crowley was said to live? I couldn't make any sense what these 2 were just standing there. They were standing in directly in the line of everybody else's fire and putting your back to an opening, not even looking towards it. They both deserved 1 nail in the coffin. They were both stupid, and they both got killed very easily. The team of SWAT officers are all firing into the shack. Not sure if they're even hitting anything, but they're pretty much just wasting ammo at this point. During all the chaos, Victor Crowley appears from nowhere and knocks another officer to the ground, and he starts to hack at him with his hatchet. 4 other SWAT officers run up to Victor Crowley and also have to punch him and beat him with their assault weapons. This has no effect on him, and he knocks all of them away. He picks up the first officer, rips him in half, and then he proceeds to kill the other 4 SWAT officers in quick succession. He cuts one person's head off, removes another guy's leg, hatches another, and stomps another dude's head into mush. Okay, first off, the officer who was knocked down and ripped in half, I'm going to give him 2 nails in a coffin. Now, Victor Crowley is supernatural. We'll explain why you can't hear or feel him coming up behind you until it's too late. I mean, this guy was knocked down, and Victor Crowley immediately started to hack at him with his hatchet. So, yeah, he suffered in pain while all the others were getting killed and then ripped in half. So, since he wasn't given much of a chance to do anything, and he was surprised from behind by the supernatural beast, I'm going to give him 2 nails in a coffin. Now to the 4 moron SWAT officers. They're each getting 1 nail in the coffin. More idiots that put themselves in the line of fire. Plus, they all had weapons on them, and they chose to beat up Victor Crowley with the weapon instead of at least trying to shoot him. At this point, they probably didn't know that bullets were ineffective, but they wanted him to go punch and kick him instead of using those guns with those really, hot lead bullet rounds that could have fired into him. Yeah, they made it way too easy to get killed. It's not looking good for law enforcement in this franchise. And I'm always going to grade them harder based off my time in the military. So these 4 were easy to give. 1 nail in the coffin. SWAT team leader Tyler Hawes is Victor Crowley's next victim, and he's played by Derek Mears, who was Jason in the Friday the 13th remake. So our next fight is Jason versus Jason. The new Jason fires his assault rifle at old Jason, unloading his mag, and then he switches to his sidearm in actually a smooth motion. He then puts the whole pistol magazine into the monster. None of these rounds will have any effect on Victor Crowley, so the SWAT leader holsters his mag, and he charges at the beast. He throws a punch, but it's pretty easily caught, and he's slammed into a wall. He says something to Victor Crowley.
Let's do this, you little bitch.
Only to be punched through the stomach and not have his spine and head ripped out of his body. New Jason was no match for old Jason, and he's getting 1.5 nails in a coffin. He did have some tactical training, and you can see that in the way he would fire and would transition weapons. And I think running at Victor Crowley at this time was a bit foolish. I mean, he wasn't cornered, and there were other weapons around. I'm sure he had a tactical knife on him or something, but running towards him, throwing a haymaker after bullets had no effect was really not the smartest thing to do at that moment. but I'm only going to give him that extra half an hour since he was somewhat proficient before he took a ran at good old Mr. Victor Crowley. Deputy Schneiderman, for some reason, that name just seems to fit him. He says F this and goes to get his rocket launcher. Then Officer Rick shows up out of nowhere and shoots Victor Crowley from behind. But, of course, Victor Crowley's going to pop right back up and charges at the officer, tossing him into the side of the house. Deputy Schneiderman is getting the rocket launcher ready, and Officer Rick is about to have his head impaled on a piece of wood. But Deputy Dewey over here fires the rocket right at these two men, only hitting Officer Rick, sending him flying into the house, which explodes, sending everybody flying backwards. Officer Rick, I'm going to give him, I guess, 1.5 nails in the coffin. You know, he fired one round and then stopped. If he was out of rounds, then he was stupid for not knowing how many rounds he had left. After he fired, he was farting around with something, giving time for Victor Crowley to get to him. He was dead no matter what, but Deputy Moron fired the rocket like a dumbass and missed. I don't know why most of these guys, it seems like none of them really have any form of law enforcement training. Maybe I should give him 1 nail in the coffin, but at least he tried to do something. So I'm going to give him that extra half a nail for that, I guess, and give him 1.5 nails in the coffin. After the explosion, Deputy Schneiderman is acting like a badass, but we all know killing Victor Crowley is not going to be that easy, there, Deputy. While he's prematurely separating Mr. Crowley, he comes out of the fire, throws a flaming piece of wood into the deputy's back. He can't get back up, so SWAT team member Darty, she tries to help, but she's knocked away and she retreats with Sheriff Fowler and Andrew. Deputy Schneiderman is not going to do so well. Victor Crowley stands on his back, rips his arms off, and then he steps on the deputy's head, drowning him in the mud. Deputy Schneiderman fell into the trap of premature celebration, causing him to earn 1 nail in the coffin. He never saw a body or anything, yet he was celebrating like he killed Victor Crowley all by himself. The few that were left never took their eyes off the blown up house, and they saw Victor Crowley walking out of it. Meanwhile, a deputy had his back to him the entire time while he was gloating. Not the time to do that right after the monster that just slaughtered an entire SWAT team. You haven't seen a body yet. So, yeah, which is weird since he was pissing him on the entire film. He was in the swamp and acting like a coward. So, yeah, this deputy dumbass deserves only 1 nail in the coffin. So now Sheriff Fowler, Darty, and Andrew are running to find a boat to get out of Dodge. They run into paramedic William, actually knocking him down. He gets up and runs off by himself, and then he finds Samson's boat from the first movie. He's lying on the ground next to the boat, but guess who pops up? Ben from the first movie in the series. If you remember, we never nailed him, because he was still alive, not for long. Just as soon as we see him, Victor Crowley throws a hatchet into Ben's head, finally killing him. Real quick for this one, Ben, I'm going to give him 2.5 nails in the coffin. He was one of the last survivors of the first movie, and he was in the boat for the entirety of Hatchet 2. He held on as long as he could, and even in Hatchet, he really didn't do anything that stupid. He was one of the final survivors, and he survived the entire length of Hatchet with, being, gutted and having an arm ripped off. So, just for all the stuff that he had to endure, plus, I kind of like Ben. I think he deserves 2.5 nails in the coffin. Right after Ben was killed, paramedic William is face-to-face with Victor Crowley, but he wasn't killed by good old Victor. The paramedic looks to the side, sees a gator just a couple feet away from him, and the gator chomps on him, dragging him away and killing him. Officer Williams is now gator food, and he's getting 1 nail in the coffin. This idiot chose to go out on his own instead of sticking together with Sheriff Fowler, Darty, and Andrew. He ran to the boat and laid down next to it instead of at least trying to get in the boat and getting away. I don't know how he thought he was hiding. Made a lot of dumb decisions, and I think he more than deserves just that 1 nail in the coffin. So Sheriff Fowler, Darty, and Andrew get in the mobile lab craft, and they're trapped inside with Victor Crowley trying to bust his way in. He's using his gas-powered sander to get into the craft. At this time, Sheriff Fowler's ex-wife, Amanda, shows up with Mary Beth and Deputy Winslow. They have the ashes of Thomas Crowley, and Amanda believes that if Victor Crowley gets the ashes, the curse will be broken, since Victor, just wants to search for his daddy. So after he gets the ashes, he should be able to die then. So when Victor actually hears Amanda, he stops trying to bust in the paramedic craft. Sheriff Fowler hears his wife, and he looks at the hole in the door, but he's grabbed by Victor Crowley, and Victor Crowley removes his head. Sorry, Billy Boy, I'm only going to give you 1.5 nails in the coffin. He was smart to take off when he saw bullets weren't doing anything, and I like how he called the National Guard and told them it was crazed gunmen that were attacking, since when he said it was Victor Crowley, he was met with a lot of confusion. He could have earned himself more nails, but when he looked at a door and he heard his wife, he kind of exposed himself. He could have called out to her or stood back from the bit and opening. He could have waited till the National Guard showed up. But I just think sticking his head out the opening was probably the worst thing he could have done. He could have called for her and told her to run. I mean, she was in danger no matter what. And Victor Crowley did stop when he heard the others coming, and I just don't feel like Billy did enough to deserve 2 nails in a coffin. Just a few more deaths to go. Sheriff Fowler dropped his pistol, then Victor Crowley dragged him outside. Doherty, who's played by Relay Vanderbilt, also actually played young Victor in the first Hatchet. She sees the pistol and she's slowly moving towards it since it still has some ammo in it. Andrew was telling her to stop and leave it, but she's still going for it, moving very slowly. So she gets her hand on it. Victor Crowley's arm grabs her, yanks her outside. She's screaming help for Andrew, but he's not moving or doing anything. He's just cowering, and Doherty is then ripped apart by Victor Crowley. I like this character. She outlasted most everyone else in the movie, and I'm going to give her 2 nails in a coffin. I was stuck on this one for a moment. You know, she was trying to get a weapon. I give her credit for that since it did take some bravery, but you could also argue that it wasn't the smartest thing in the world since she knew bullets pretty much only pissed him off, and she was putting herself in the line of sight. But I did like her decisions throughout the movie, and she did make smarter decisions than others, and she did show some bravery. So, yeah, all things considered, I think she just squeaked out getting 2 nails in the coffin. By now, Amanda Fowler, Deputy Winslow, and Mary Beth are all that's left other than Andrew. Amanda is calling out for Victor, telling him to come here and get his daddy. Well, she gets her wish and he shows up. Amanda goes behind Mary Beth and she's pushing her, telling her, go, it has to be you. Give him the ashes. You know, since she's related to Samson and Samson responds for his death, you know, whatever. The curse is that Victor will roam the swamp always looking for his father, so Mary Beth puts the urn down and, you know, presenting it to Victor. He's standing over the urn, but he's not picking it up yet. Deputy Winslow gets impatient and he fires his gun, knocking Victor Crowley down. He then stands over the creature and loads a magazine into him. He turns around saying he's dead. Not. Victor Crowley pops up, rips the deputy's chest open. Amanda dives on the ground, tosses the urn at Mary Beth, yelling at her to give him the ashes. Well, then she's picked up by Victor Crowley, and he's holding her. She's telling him she brought the ashes here to help. Yeah, I don't think he cares. He just kind of pulls her head off. Deputy Winslow will nail him first, and I'm going to give him 1 nail in the coffin. You know, Mary Beth told him that Victor Crowley's an unkillable monster, and Amanda said that the only way to kill him was to bring him the ashes of his father. So he jumped the gun and started to shoot him, and then he did a bunch more rounds into the guy's chest, but the deputy turned his back on him, just assuming he was dead. At one point, you know, he had to believe what Amanda and Mary Beth told him since he took Mary Beth out of her cell and all. And he even drove to Captain Spaulding's house to get the ashes since he had them. So he must have forgot all that at the end and just thought maybe he was going to save the day all by himself. Bad move on his part. Yeah, he's only going to get 1 nail in the coffin. The final death in the movie was good old Amanda. And we all know that is Caroline Williams. We don't need to introduce her. I mean, she is a legend. I'm going to give good old Stretch 1 nail in the coffin. This was all her plan, but her execution sucked. She didn't have to dive on the ground to get the ashes to Victor Crowley. That was probably the worst thing she could have done. And then she tried to reason with the monster. Did she really think that was going to work? Everything she knew about him, you know, she thought, hey, I did it for you. I was trying to help you. Like Victor Crowley was just going to say, hey, thanks, Stretch, and put her down. No, yeah, she made some dumb decisions at the end, earning herself a solid 1 nail in the coffin. After Victor Crowley kills Amanda, Mary Beth is screaming at him. He throws Amanda's head at Mary Beth, knocking her down. He grabs her, picks her up, and impales her on a branch on a tree. She still has the urn in her hands, and she breaks it over Victor Crowley's head. He backs up and stops his attack. The ashes start to make him melt, and the branch that Mary Beth was impaled on breaks, and she falls to the ground. She picks up a grenade launcher, and she's waiting for him to move. As Victor Crowley is melting, she gets impatient. She finally says, fuck it, fires the weapon, and blows up Victor Crowley into a bloody mist. Just then, the National Guard is showing up, and the movie ends with Mary Beth taking a breath, letting us know that she may actually survive. I'm not going to nail Victor Crowley since he's pretty much just a supernatural beast here. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are all my Nails in a Coffin for Hatchet 3. Here's a summary of all the nails I've awarded. Here's the average nails in a coffin for the films I've covered so far. Hatchet, average of 1.82 nails in a coffin. Hatchet 2, slightly lower with 1.7. And Hatchet 3, bottom of the barrel right now, ending with 1.36 nails in a coffin. And I think it's because of the piss poor excuses for SWAT team members and law enforcement in this movie. Lots of stupid decisions in this one. Only one more film to go, and we're going to cover that one next week with Victor Crowley. How will that movie compare with My Nails in a Coffin? We'll find out next week. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, notification bell so you don't miss a video. I have videos coming out every Friday and Wednesday. Tons of fun. Hope you enjoy yourselves. Take care. I'm having a lot of fun with this series. I hope you are. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Take care of yourselves and each other, and be good to each other. I am your friendly neighborhood Uncle Pete. And remember, with great kills, there must also come great nails.